In October 1971, a Victorian granite bridge stood in the middle of the Arizona desert. It spanned a channel of bright blue water carved from the shore of Lake Havasu, flanked by ornate lampposts that had been cast from cannonballs taken from Napoleon's army after Waterloo. Boy Scouts carried flags across it. Hot air balloons drifted overhead. Fireworks cracked above the Colorado River. 3 years earlier, this same bridge had carried 6 lanes of London traffic across the Thames. That was 1968. By 1971, it had been dismantled into 10,276 numbered granite blocks, shipped 10,000 miles through the Panama Canal, trucked 300 miles across the California desert, and reassembled on a concrete frame in a town that barely existed. The story of how a bridge left London and ended up in Arizona is one of the strangest transactions in modern history. It involves a sinking bridge, a desperate city council, a chainsaw millionaire, and a myth about the wrong bridge that proved more commercially useful than the truth ever could. It was the year 50 AD, and Roman soldiers were driving timber pilings into the bed of the Thames at the most easterly point where the river was still narrow enough to bridge. The settlement of Londinium grew up around the northern end of that crossing almost immediately. Before the bridge, crossing the Thames had required ferries. After it, the riverbank became a marketplace. For nearly 2,000 years, every version of London Bridge occupied essentially the same spot, and every version of London owed something fundamental to its existence. The Romans built and rebuilt wooden bridges across the centuries. The Anglo-Saxons replaced them. In 1014, the Viking king Olaf Haraldsson tore down the wooden bridge during an attack on London, an event some historians believe gave rise to the nursery rhyme that would long outlast the bridge itself. London Bridge is falling down. The rhyme predates the stone bridge by centuries, and yet it was the stone bridge that would eventually fulfill the prophecy by sinking into the riverbed and being sold for parts. Construction of the first permanent stone bridge began in 1176, commissioned by King Henry II and supervised by Peter of Colchurch, a priest and master builder. It took 33 years to complete. 33 years. The bridge that opened in 1209 was 926 feet long, supported by 19 pointed stone arches, and it would remain the only crossing of the Thames in London for over 500 years. The narrow arches reduced the river's flow by as much as 80%, creating violent, turbulent rapids beneath the bridge, rapids that were dangerous to navigate by boat. By the 15th century, approximately 200 houses and shops lined the bridge itself, making it not merely a crossing, but a street suspended above the water. A chapel dedicated to Thomas Becket stood at its midpoint, and from 1305 to 1660, the southern gateway served a particular purpose that visitors tended to remember. The severed heads of executed traitors were impaled on spikes and preserved in tar above the entrance. The first head displayed belonged to the Scottish knight William Wallace. Others included Thomas More and Wat Tyler. At peak periods, more than 30 heads were on display simultaneously. I mean, think about that for a second. A bridge that was simultaneously a shopping street, a chapel, and a gallery of severed heads. For over 5 centuries, this was the only way to cross the Thames in London without getting into a boat. The only bridge. One crossing for an entire city. Westminster Bridge did not open until 1750, and when it did, the watermen of the Thames, who had built their entire livelihood on ferrying passengers across the river, rioted. The old bridge had sustained a monopoly on Thames crossings for longer than most European nations have existed. In 1212, a fire at both ends of the bridge trapped thousands of people on its span. Estimates suggest up to 3,000 may have died. In 1282, 5 arches collapsed under winter ice. Over the following centuries, the bridge was patched, reinforced, modified, and gradually stripped of its buildings. By 1762, all the houses had been removed and the carriageway was widened to about 46 feet. Removing a central pier to widen the navigation channel caused severe erosion of the riverbed that plagued the structure for decades afterward. And by the early 1800s, the cost of maintaining the medieval bridge had become untenable. A parliamentary committee recommended replacing it entirely. The new bridge was designed by the Scottish civil engineer John Rennie the Elder, who won an open competition for the contract, beating among others the celebrated Thomas Telford. Rennie died in 1821 before construction could begin. His sons, Sir John Rennie and George Rennie, carried out their father's designs. The granite came from Aberdeen in Scotland and the Swell Tor quarry on Dartmoor in Devon. These were not decorative stones. Each block was cut, dressed, and fitted to bear the weight of a structure intended to last centuries. The first stone was laid on the 15th of June, 1825, and the new bridge was built immediately alongside the medieval structure, which was demolished as the replacement took shape. For several years, 2 bridges stood side by side across the Thames, one rising as the other was taken apart. By 1832, the medieval bridge was gone completely. After 622 years, the replacement was opened on the 1st of August 1831 by King William IV and Queen Adelaide, arriving by royal barge from Somerset House. Church bells rang across the city, cannons fired. The Times described the ceremony as the most splendid spectacle witnessed on the Thames in many years. The new London Bridge was 1,005 feet long, 67 feet wide, carried by 5 semi-elliptical stone arches built from Aberdeen and Dartmoor granite. It cost £506,000 to build, roughly $154 million in today's money. For a while, the bridge served London well. It was elegant, solid, and more than adequate for the horse-drawn traffic of the Victorian era. That calm did not last. By 1896, the bridge was handling approximately 900 vehicle crossings per hour, far beyond what any engineer of the 1820s had anticipated. The foundations, supported by nearly 2,000 timber pilings driven into the riverbed, began sinking under the increasing weight of motorized traffic in the early 20th century. Surveys showed the bridge was dropping at a rate of roughly 1 inch every 8 years. By 1924, the east side of the bridge had sunk approximately 4 inches lower than the west. The bridge was not merely aging, it was tilting. The sinking continued through the mid-century, slow and consistent, measurable and unstoppable. By the early 1960s, engineers formally declared London Bridge structurally unsound and unable to carry the load of modern traffic. Renovation was impractical. The timber pilings beneath the piers were waterlogged and rotting. The arches were spreading under strain. The City of London Corporation, through its Bridge House Estates Committee, resolved to build a replacement. This left the question of what to do with Rennie's bridge. The structure was too heavy to leave standing alongside a replacement. It would need to come down. The estimated cost of demolition was approximately £1.2 million. London would be paying to destroy a bridge that had cost £500,000 to build. Then Ivan Lukin proposed something that made his colleagues question his sanity. Sell it. Lukin was a member of the City of London's Common Council, a former advertising and newspaper professional with an instinct for the improbable. His colleagues on the Bridge House Estates Committee considered the idea absurd. They all thought I was completely crazy, Lukin later recalled. Deputy Erlebach, a fellow committee member, asked sardonically whether Lukin was proposing the price in dollars. Lukin corrected him, "Pounds, sir." Despite the mockery, the council agreed to place the bridge on the market in 1967. In the months that followed, there were inquiries. There were expressions of interest. There were no firm bids. With approximately 5 weeks remaining before the closing deadline of March 28, 1968, Luckin volunteered to travel to America personally to find a buyer. He was, at this point, the only person on the committee who believed the scheme could work. At a press conference held at the British-American Chamber of Commerce in New York, a journalist challenged him directly. The bridge was only built in 1831. It did not have houses on it. It was not even the bridge in the nursery rhyme. What exactly was he selling? Luckin's response was the performance of a lifetime. London Bridge is not just a bridge, he said. It is the heir to 2,000 years of history, going back to the 1st century AD, to the time of Roman Londinium. He was selling continuity itself. Not a 137-year-old stone structure, but a 2,000-year-old crossing. He held a separate press conference on the bridge itself in London, had it filmed, flew the footage to New York, and had it syndicated to American television and radio stations. A glossy 40-page sales brochure was prepared by London authorities, packed with photographs and technical specifications. The brochure made perfectly clear which bridge was for sale. This was not Tower Bridge. The distinction mattered, and everyone involved knew it. The real question is what happened behind the closed doors of the negotiation that followed. 7,000 miles from London, on the eastern shore of Lake Havasu in western Arizona, a man named Robert P. McCulloch had a problem that no amount of money seemed able to solve. McCulloch was born in 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri. His grandfather had made a fortune implementing Thomas Edison's electrical power plants across American cities. McCulloch and his siblings inherited that fortune in 1925. He graduated from Stanford, married the daughter of the co-founder of Briggs & Stratton, founded his own engineering company, and in 1949 revolutionized the chainsaw market with the first lightweight one-man chainsaw. He expanded into oil, gas, and land development. He was, by any measure, wealthy, successful, and eccentric. He once told a reporter his secret to success was booze and broads. In 1963, McCulloch was flying over Lake Havasu, a reservoir on the Colorado River, looking for a site to test his outboard boat motors. He spotted the barren eastern shore and purchased a 26-square-mile parcel of desert on the courthouse steps in Kingman, Arizona, for under $75 an acre. It was the largest single tract of state land ever sold in Arizona at that time. The land had been an Army Air Corps rest camp called Site 6 during the Second World War. McCulloch paid approximately $1.25 million for the entire parcel. He founded Lake Havasu City on September 30, 1963, alongside developer C.V. Wood. Wood's credentials were unusual. He had been chief developer of Disneyland, the man who had turned Walt Disney's vision into a functioning theme park. McCulloch hired him because Wood understood something that most real estate developers did not. People do not buy land. They buy a reason to go somewhere. McCulloch opened a chainsaw manufacturing plant to bring jobs. Within 2 years, 3 plants employed 400 workers. He had built a town. The problem was that nobody else wanted to live there. The land was remote, hundreds of miles from any major city, and summer temperatures regularly exceeded 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Real estate agents brought prospective buyers out to see the desert, and the prospective buyers looked at the desert and went home. McCulloch had built a city with no attraction. The desert needed a landmark. How McCulloch first heard about the London Bridge sale is genuinely contested. One account says he and Wood saw a British television advertisement while on a business trip to London. Another says Wood learned of it at a meeting about the sale of the ocean liner RMS Queen Mary, where he supposedly asked whether anything else was for sale. McCulloch's real estate agent, Robert Plumer, is also credited with bringing the idea to the table. McCulloch's initial reaction is not disputed. "That is the craziest idea I have ever heard," he reportedly said. Then he agreed to pursue it. Negotiations between McCulloch, Wood, and the City of London authorities were described by all parties as difficult. The British side was formal, cautious, and entirely unaccustomed to negotiating with American industrialists who solved problems with directness and alcohol. McCulloch later told the Chicago Tribune magazine that they poured an awful lot of scotch, trying to loosen them up enough to give some idea of how much they wanted. The City of London Corporation, for its part, was trying to extract the highest possible price for an asset it had never expected to sell in the first place. McCulloch's method of calculating his bid was remarkably simple and entirely characteristic. He doubled the estimated demolition cost of £1.2 million, arriving at $2.4 million, on the logic that the city would be saving the full demolition cost while also receiving a payment. Then he added $60,000, $1,000 for each year of his age at the time he expected the bridge would reopen in Arizona. He planned to be 60. The final bid was $2,460,000. On April 18, 1968, McCulloch's offer was accepted. Other bidders, including the entertainer Red Skelton, did not match it. Shipping costs added approximately $240,000. The total project cost, including reconstruction and the dredging of a channel beneath the bridge, would ultimately reach approximately $10 million. If McCulloch had stopped here, simply buying the bridge and announcing it to the press, this would be a modestly interesting footnote in real estate history. It was not. The most persistent piece of folklore surrounding this story is that McCulloch thought he was buying Tower Bridge, the famous Victorian bascule bridge with its Gothic towers, built between 1886 and 1894, and was horrified to discover he had purchased the plain 5-arched London Bridge instead. This has been definitively denied by both parties. Luckin was emphatic about it. The 40-page sales brochure was unambiguous. Tower Bridge's own website calls it a popular rumour. McCulloch's grandson, Michael McCulloch, confirmed to BBC London that his grandfather knew exactly what he was buying. And then he added something revealing. The stories kept coming up and kept providing free press and encouraging people to visit Lake Havasu and the bridge, so he never corrected it. Which, looking back, was either shrewd marketing or a masterclass in understanding that a good myth sells more land than an accurate press release. McCulloch let the confusion circulate for years, free publicity from a misunderstanding he could have corrected with a single phone call. The sale included only the exterior granite-facing blocks of the bridge, not the internal structure or the foundations. The land on which it stood was not part of the deal. Before dismantling began, the stones were transported from the Thames to Merivale Quarry near Tavistock in Devon, where 6 to 8 inch slices were cut from the backs of over 1,000 blocks to reduce weight for the transatlantic shipment. This was precise, careful work. The surface that had faced London traffic and London weather for 137 years was preserved intact. Only the hidden interior faces were trimmed. The total shipment consisted of 10,276 exterior granite blocks weighing £22 million, roughly 10,000 tons. Each block was stamped with a 4-number code before removal. The first number identified which arch span. The second identified the row of stones. The third and fourth identified the position within that row. The system was designed to allow exact reconstruction. A 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle made of granite, each piece weighing between a few hundred pounds and several tons. The first 855 tons left London in 1968, shipped through the Panama Canal to Long Beach, California, a journey of approximately 10,000 miles. A newly built cargo ship sailing without other freight, negotiated to carry the stones for operating costs alone, far below standard freight rates. The first shipment arrived at Long Beach on the 4th of July, 1968, American Independence Day, which, given the nature of the cargo, was a coincidence nobody could quite ignore. 5 days later, the first truckload reached Lake Havasu City, carried 300 miles across the California and Arizona desert from the coast. The total shipping cost came to approximately $7 million, above and beyond the purchase price. U.S. Customs Agent Joseph Farrar processed the unusual cargo at Long Beach. The bridge was declared an antique under U.S. Customs law, specifically because it was over 100 years old, meeting the legal threshold for duty-free import of antiques. This classification saved McCulloch approximately $270,600 in import tariffs, which would otherwise have been calculated at 11% of the purchase value. Luckin personally called Norris McWhirter of the Guinness Book of Records, suggesting the bridge be entered as the largest antique ever sold. McWhirter confirmed it qualified. That record still stands. The bridge was rebuilt over dry land because there was no river. There was not even a ditch. The chosen site was flat desert adjacent to Lake Havasu. A steel-reinforced concrete frame was constructed first, and the original granite blocks were laid over it as cladding. This was not merely an aesthetic choice. Rebuilding the bridge in its original form, with solid stone arches bearing the full structural load, would have been prohibitively heavy and unnecessary. The concrete core reduced the structure's effective weight from approximately 130,000 tons to 30,000 tons, while making it capable of carrying modern automotive traffic. Architect Robert Beresford supervised reconstruction, working from copies of Rennie's original 1824 plans. A crew of approximately 40 men worked from 1968 to 1971, fitting each numbered stone back into its designated position according to the 4-digit code stamped on it before dismantling. Some stones were damaged in transit. Replacement blocks were sourced from local granite and coated with soot from kerosene burners to match the centuries-old weathered appearance of the originals. From a distance, the replacements were indistinguishable from the London granite. From close up, they still are. Once the bridge was complete, McCulloch had a mile-long channel dredged beneath it, diverting water from Lake Havasu to create what became known as the Bridgewater Channel, separating Pittsburgh Point Peninsula from the mainland. He called it the Little Thames. An arbitrary piece of desert was now an island with a 19th-century British bridge crossing it. The ornate lamp posts that still stand on the bridge today were part of the original sail. They were cast from iron, melted down from cannonballs, captured from Napoleon's army after the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Every time someone walks across this bridge in Arizona, they pass beneath lampposts forged from Napoleonic war spoils. In 200 years, those cannonballs went from a battlefield in Belgium to a bridge over the Thames to a channel in the Sonoran Desert. On September 23, 1968, with granite blocks still arriving from California, the Lord Mayor of London, Sir Gilbert Inglefield, travelled to Arizona to lay the foundation stone alongside Arizona Governor Jack Williams. The cornerstone weighed 8,900 pounds. British and American dignitaries stood in the desert heat and watched a ceremony that would have been inconceivable 5 years earlier. A Lord Mayor of London, in full ceremonial regalia, laying a stone in the Sonoran Desert. The bridge was formally rededicated on October 10, 1971. The ceremony was everything McCulloch and Wood could make it. A parade of flag-bearing Boy Scouts crossed the bridge. Fireworks cracked above the lake. Skydivers descended from the Arizona sky. Hot air balloons drifted over the channel. Marching bands played. The event drew national press coverage. Lake Havasu City had grown from a company town of a few hundred people to over 10,000 residents within a decade of the bridge's opening. The desert city had its landmark. McCulloch's gamble paid off comprehensively. Land sales in Lake Havasu City surged after the news of the bridge purchase broke. The story was covered by every major American newspaper and broadcast network. The bridge itself became the attraction that the desert had lacked. Because the land had cost him virtually nothing, under $75 an acre, The profits from property sales around the bridge covered every penny of the purchase, shipping, and reconstruction. He is reported to have recouped the entire $10 million investment through increased land sales alone. By 1975, London Bridge was attracting nearly 2 million tourists a year to Lake Havasu City, making it Arizona's second most popular tourist attraction after the Grand Canyon. A distinction the city still claims. The town that real estate agents could not sell had become a destination. While Rennie's bridge was crossing the ocean, the City of London began constructing its replacement. The modern London Bridge, designed by the firm of Mott, Hay and Anderson, and built by John Moorlam and Company, is a pre-stressed concrete box girder structure, 928 feet long and 105 feet wide, carrying 6 lanes of traffic. It was built between 1967 and 1972 and opened on March 16, 1973, by Queen Elizabeth II. Architectural critics regard it as one of the least distinguished bridges over the Thames. A flat, grey functional slab, entirely without the visual character of the bridge it replaced. It does its job. Nobody crosses it for the view. There is something worth sitting with in that contrast. The photographed bridge, the one tourists seek out, the one that draws 2 million visitors a year, sits in the Arizona desert. The practical one, the one nobody photographs and few can name, carries traffic across the Thames. London kept the useful bridge. Arizona got the beautiful one. McCulloch sold his chainsaws. London sold its granite. Both parties got exactly what they wanted, and the transaction says something quiet about what cities choose to preserve and what they are willing to let go. If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We cover the hidden stories behind London every week. McCulloch sold McCulloch Motors Corporation to Black & Decker in 1973, 4 years after the bridge purchase and 2 years after its rededication. He died on February 25, 1977, at the age of 65 in Los Angeles. He was 60 when the bridge reopened, exactly as he had predicted when calculating his bid. He never lived to see the full extent of what he had built, though by the time of his death, the growth of Lake Havasu City was already well beyond anything he or C.V. Wood had projected. The city today has a population of over 57,000 people. The bridge still stands in Arizona, spanning the Bridgewater Channel on McCulloch Boulevard North. It carries both vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Hundreds of bats and thousands of swallows inhabit the nooks between its granite blocks. Strafing scars from World War II are still visible on the surface, scored into the stone during the Blitz when the bridge was still standing over the Thames. The interior is hollow, the concrete framework accessible from within. It remains the world's largest antique. 2 pedestrian alcoves from Rennie's original bridge survived and remain in London. One is in Victoria Park in East London. The other is at King's College. Small fragments of a bridge the city decided it no longer needed, standing in parks and courtyards, where almost nobody notices them. London Bridge has been falling down for 2,000 years. The Romans built it, and it fell. The Anglo-Saxons built it, and the Vikings tore it down. The medievals built it in stone, and it burned, collapsed under ice, and sank under the weight of its own houses. John Rennie built it in granite, and it tilted slowly into the riverbed over the course of a century. And when the city finally sold it, a man from Missouri carried it across the world and set it down in a place where it rains 4 inches a year. The nursery rhyme outlasted every version of the bridge. The bridge in Arizona may outlast the rhyme. It sits in the desert now, granite and iron and Napoleonic cannonballs, waiting for the next 2,000 years. London has already moved on.